Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome back to Oberland Station once again for another rather fiddly build. So we're going to work in this corner today, and I do apologise for the slightly fast pace in some places, but there's quite a lot to get through on this one. And I did want to keep the video to a reasonable length. So we're going to start off with these shack foundations, which, as you can already see, I'm having issues sinking in. The plan is to build sort of around the corner here, and to use the back wall of this, what will become a house, to sort of form part of the outer wall of the settlement as well. So it's a bit fiddly and a bit of a pain, so we're trying with a concrete pillar here to see if it'll sink any more easily that way. But once again, unfortunately not. So that's more or less the right place, although it did work okay up on the edge of the railway track there. It's much higher than I wanted it. So we've shifted it down the hill a little bit closer to the field, and we'll start putting the next few bits in beside it as well. This particular one, I think the pillars help to get the foundation a little bit closer to the other one, but in terms of the sinking it's not really helped at all. So you can see here it's not quite on the same level. See a little bit higher on that first one. So pull that out for a moment and try again. I do apologise for the darkness here, by the way. This corner's rather shadowed. So, unfortunately, as it's not going to play ball and I can't get them to sit at exactly the same height, I've just elected to go with it, and we'll have a small step in there, put a couple of extra levels in. I'm already planning on having 2 levels anyway, so it's not a major problem. So I'll get the third one in there. That's reasonably cooperative. A little bit of adjustment was needed, but it's not too bad. We're now going to put a second level, whatever you want to call it, just down in front of the one we've just built. So in order to get the idea of how high we want that, I'm going to put a staircase in first. So that's what we're doing here, building one of my improvised ones. Just a quick check to see how it actually looks when it snaps into place, so that we can position it by eye and have it look right. So grab it with a concrete pillar, hop up on the top if I don't fall down the hole. And just carefully position it in so it sort of matches the way it lines up when it snaps. Although in this case I want it in the centre, so hence why we're using the pillar rather than just snapping it in straight away. There we go, that looks about right. Okay. So we're now going to position this extra foundation underneath the bottom of the stairs. And the idea is to make sure that the left-hand edge here supports the bottom level of the steps, or looks like it is at least anyway. Whilst the further edge that sort of points towards last week's build, furthest from where we're standing now, wants to sort of angle with the gap between the end of the fence there and the foundation piece at the back, so we've got a comfortable entrance on that side. So we'll be restoring the fence somewhat on that side, so I want to make sure that access works from that side as well as this one as well. So a little bit of adjustment still needed. This took quite a lot of fiddling with, just because again the ground was not very cooperative. But we'll get there in the end. So, now I'm going to put some floor pieces in just to join the gaps up. Fortunately, these quarter-sized floors are actually quite cooperative about snapping through the legs of the foundations, so it works quite well. A little bit of build order required here. So, see, I put this one in, and now I can't get the third one to snap onto the piece we're actually standing on. So we'll pull that one out, chuck it out of the way. We'll snap to this one first, and then this one will go right in on top. So a little bit of an angle on the corner there, but we're already improvising a wall on that corner anyway, so it won't be too much of a problem. We'll get the tree out of the building as well. So we're going to start putting some walls on, try and flesh out the building a bit. Decided to go with the tree clipping through here, because although it's rather obvious, it kind of builds character, so whether or not it's grown through the building or they've sort of built off of it, I don't know, but sometimes the clipping can look obvious and just bad, but in this case I actually quite like the way it works. I think it gives a bit of character. For some reason that wooden end piece did not want to go in, but the metal one was perfectly cooperative, so that's fine. I'll snap a few walls on. I had wanted this deep wall on the back there, but unfortunately because the foundation is so close to the ground there, I can't snap it in. And once again, when we try and group select it into place, which should have worked fine, the ground here at Oberland is not playing ball once again, so I gave up on that one and just snapped it on there. This upper level is going to end up becoming the bedroom anyway, so it kind of works to have a bit more room. So snap a few extra wall pieces in, nice and easy. We're mixing and matching, and to say the thing I'm bearing in mind at the back here is that I want that back wall to look reasonably strong, so there's not going to be any windows. And as I say, it's going to be the outer wall of the settlement, so hopefully it should repel any attacks with there being a spawn point just up the hill there. As we discovered at the glowing sea build that I did a while back, these roof pieces are actually quite forgiving if you're a bit patient with them about snapping through each other. So we're able to get a roof on the angled building there without too much difficulty. This section's a little more awkward because it's so close together. Fortunately with that wall on I can't snap the deeper wall section there on. But do it the other way around, the right build order, it goes through just fine. However, that clipping's a little overt with that particular wall piece, so in this case we'll pull it out and work around it. This is one of the USO added door frames. There's a few different textures and styles that are available through that mod now. Have been for a while, but unfortunately it doesn't want to snap on there. Conveniently the metal one goes in just fine, so that works. Roof on the top, mix it up a little bit. There we go. So I did have a plan to put a balcony on here. I wanted to sort of be able to stand down here and look out over the field, sort of communicate with anybody who's working down there and see what's going on, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, the wooden pieces don't want to snap through the fence, and even if they do, as you can see here, it doesn't look all that good. When we step outside in just a second, you'll see it really doesn't look right, it doesn't look the way I wanted it to, so I'll just pull that off and go with an open front to the section we've got. So, snap a few more walls in. I want a door for this upper level, so I'm going to use that piece I couldn't use before. If in doubt with things like this, it might well be worth quick saving before you take that top step off. It does snap fine into the middle of the door, but if it doesn't line up properly, you can wind up knackering yourself up. And as they're put in manually, it makes it very, very difficult to then put it back again afterwards. So, on to blocking up the holes in the walls. The standard technique again, we'll use group select to the concrete pillar. But once again, the ground at Oberland's being a pain, and I can't group select at all up here for some reason. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is one where it didn't, so... The bottom of the hill here seems to be a lot more cooperative, so we'll move down there, and when we get the pillar close enough anyway. There we go. So again, the ground's being awkward, but you can just about see there when I push the wall a little further back, and the pillar as well, it'll start playing ball and allowing you to place it. So we'll spin the thing around and place it with the pillar on the inside. Fortunately there's a gap in the floor there that I will cover up with a plywood board later on, so that just gives us just about enough room to group select these wall pieces together and fill the gap with them. And this is not the sturdiest part of the wall, but it is a shack after all, so I've avoided there being anything too overt that you can shoot through, but it is still suitably ramshackle. A couple of retextured USO balcony railings just to plug the gap at the bottom here. I'll come back round later on and sort of put a bit of support and fill up the gaps around the bottom as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. For this one it was a little bit awkward because it's so close to the edge of the build area, which is something worth bearing in mind when you're doing this, or anything like it to be fair. But fortunately I was able to group select from far enough away and round the side there that the wall went in no problem, and this one's much easier because there's a bit more room. Conveniently enough, the only place I could actually put these in and they would actually go green was when they were more or less the right height anyway. So that was made sort of seeing what you're doing a lot easier because you didn't have any other options but to put it in the right place. So unusual little bonus. There's a little gap at the top of the wall there that I was a little concerned about, but it's not really visible from the outside, so I think we can live with it. And very conveniently, although nothing will snap into these metal deep walls, this particular metal piece just happily sits there no problem. The wooden one, again, didn't want to play ball. This one was absolutely fine, so we went with that. I tried a couple of options, rock glitch in a few different pieces here, just to build a improvised wall, I suppose. But the other pieces I used didn't end up looking quite right. There were too many holes and gaps in. I want this side to come out reasonably cosy, so massive gaps are not really the order of the day. I mean, there are some fairly large ones there, but it's not too bad. But again, a little bit of rug glitching, and they play for nice and easy. In fact, that last one didn't even need to be rug glitched. And straight up group select with the pillar again, working in the confined space at the back there, but we manage. And a little bit of rug glitch on this side. Unfortunately, the rug itself is hitting the wall there, so I'll have to use two. We're just sort of closing off the opening around the staircase there, so that it looks like more of a doorway rather than just a open end to the building. Get things lined up. And there we go, nice and easy. In hindsight, I could probably have taken these rugs away afterwards. I ended up not doing that, but these wall pieces probably wouldn't have sunk down too much, so it might have actually worked a bit easier when it comes to the decoration phase later, which was slightly awkward in that corner with the invisible rugs there. So, for the balcony we discussed earlier, I'm going to use this sort of half-height shack wall. It's another USO addition. But again, the ground's being awkward in this corner again, so this sort of end of the wall is about the only place I can get the pillar to sink in. And if I don't use the conduit, I obviously have to put the pillar much closer to the wall piece, and then we have the same problem again. It won't sit as close to the foundation and the walls as I would like, so a little bit of conduit to give us a little bit of extra reach. And there we go. It's a little bit high, again, because the ground's awkward, but it works. You can peek over the top of it. We have got a slight gap there, unfortunately. For some reason, these pieces don't quite match up in the size, which is a little odd, actually, but I don't quite know where they've come from in-game, so I don't really know what context they were used in originally. But, rug glitch again. Get this piece in that I've tried to use several times and haven't found a viable use for. And that plugs the gap quite nicely. Again, a bit ramshackle, but it works. And I wanted a kind of open window on the bedroom on this side, so it'll look inward on the settlement rather than outward. At least it will once we put some walls on, anyway. So, dead simple, group select, line it up nice and carefully, and the ground was quite cooperative here. There we go, nobody's falling out the window now. We hope. Pathing is a little bit of an issue in this place, unfortunately, but the doorway we've got between the upper and lower sections, you kind of have to mind your head on the way through. You can walk through it, but it is a little bit low. So, we now need a staircase so we can actually get into the building. So, another one of my bespoke staircases. There's the ladder style ones that we have. They have their uses, but I really don't like the style that much. They're just a little bit too... I'm looking for a better word than lazy here. You know, they're not the most attractive solution, are they? It's just a simple case. In this case, I'm trying to build a little angle on it, because of where I'm going to put it, the staircase needs to sort of curve around the edge of the building and towards the gap between the fence and the hill, really, and the building. So that's why we're angling it there. Pull out the floor pieces that we're using to support the bottom of the stairs, largely because they hit the legs of the foundations and then you can't actually put the thing in at all. As it turned out, the thing only needed to be 2 staircases high anyway, so a few adjustments, and there we go. Nice little slightly curving staircase. Use these half walls with the angled top just to close it off, make it look a little bit more supported. A little bit finicky doing this, just because the staircase has got an angle on it. So, unfortunately we're using a straight piece of wall, but it works, makes the thing look a lot tidier. And we'll use the same principle on the other side of the staircase as well, just to close that off. It's a little bit of a tight gap, there's not much room back there, but there is just about enough room to get the pillar in and get it to sink, so that will tidy things up, but we'll do that off camera. With this particular entrance, because I'm using the edge of the deep wall, unfortunately the staircases won't snap to it. I would normally use the concrete pillar to make it much easier to sink things in and line them up. However, again, the ground's being awkward. And in this particular instance, just doing it freehand worked just fine, so it's all good. So, last couple of bits and pieces on the build proper. I'm going to wrap the bottom of the building and make the legs look a lot more sturdy. Make sure it doesn't look like anybody can just sort of slide underneath it and get into the settlement. So, junk fences on a large invisible rug there. We're going to attach it to a small rug there, as you can see, because with the rug being so large, we'll have collision issues with that instead if we don't. So, there we go. Now move that around and position it freely. Line the pillar up with that little rug. And you can use group select to select the rug specifically. Well, via the pillar. And there we go. Now it's just a matter of lining up the junk fence with the edge of the building, which is generally a lot easier to do if you're standing inside the building, because you can sort of line it up on the inside and then just push it outward. Unfortunately, I can't see the ground from in there, so the pillar won't sink. To be honest, I didn't actually try it, but I've run into that particular problem enough times in the past that I knew it was probably not going to work. So with a little bit of fiddling, there we go, wrap nice and snugly around, and that's that corner looking a lot sturdier. So just so you can see it again, we're going to repeat the procedure on the other end of the building. 2 rugs, junk fence. It helps to do it off the edge of the hill here, then you know the junk fence isn't sitting on the ground, it's actually sitting on the rug. Move it down to the bottom so the pillar will work. Shift the pillar up a little bit so we've got some room to sink. You need to make sure the bottom of the pillar is below the level of the rug that you're trying to use as an anchor, otherwise you won't be able to sink it down. It doesn't have to be far below, just that little sort of centimetre or 2 and you're good. And there we go. Nice and easy. I did actually have to adjust that one a little bit, but no need to show me fiddling with the thing for 10 minutes. So just on to the last couple of bits and pieces. It's basically the same principle. So I'm not going to go overboard and showing you the same thing over and over here. But with the ground being awkward around the back, I've used a chain of rugs here. Just the small ones, but in a straight line, but just so I can get enough reach to reach the train tracks with the pillar there so that it'll actually sink. For some reason it cooperates better there. Same principle here with the railings I'm using, but these won't rug glitch, so I'm using the conduit and just straight up group select instead. And it works. And same thing with this board on the end here. There's a couple more places where we did basically the same thing, but there we go. We have a finished farmhouse. Various levels and wrapping around the corner as well. So I'm quite happy with how this came out. It's a very scrappy improvised build, but it looks the part. It's in keeping with the rest of the settlement. Have a look around the outside. It looks reasonably secure and fortified from the outside. Actually outside the build area as we go around the back of the trees here. Should give a small nod here to Sardeliak, whose many videos have inspired a number of the techniques I've used here. Things like the junk fences and the building on an angle, that sort of thing. Principles he's used quite a few times, so if you haven't already checked him out, you absolutely should do that. I'll take a look around the inside. Once again, I've gone with lamps rather than electric for the lighting here. This is a very small settlement with not many people in it, so the amenities are going to be fairly basic. Speaking of, I must remember to put a bathroom in somewhere. So we've got a little bit of a workspace here, somewhere that can hang out and overlook the field as well. And we'll mind our head as we go up the stairs. I've actually turned that roof around because it gives, funnily enough, slightly more room to get past, even though it might not look like it. So a little bit of a dining area, using, I'm not sure if that's one of Aslam's workshop decoration pack or the makeshift furniture pack there, but it's one or the other. We've got a mixture of the two in here. Posters of the Commonwealth, get a few non-framed and illuminated posters onto the wall. The options for functional double beds in the menus at the moment are a bit limited. Did want to use a makeshift one, but they're all single beds, so I had to make do with one of the ordinary ones from USA. I think that's the only one we've got, apart from one that's much cleaner and sort of pre-war, that wouldn't really fit. Round the corner into their little living room. Much more snug and cosy. I wanted the sort of dining area and the porch down there to be sort of a bit more rustic, with a bit more comfort focused on their living areas. So sort of like they're building up the house as they go. And they're focused on the living areas first. There we go. Somewhere nice and relaxed for them to hang out. And there we have our angled farmhouse. So I do hope you enjoyed. If this is something you want to recreate yourselves, I would strongly recommend sort of going through the videos slowly. As there are a lot of little bits and pieces to this that have to be sped past just for the sake of a reasonable length. That's something to bear in mind. But for now, thank you very much for watching as always. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. Social media links down in the description, and I will be speaking to you all very, very soon.